What is going on, YouTube? What is poppin'? What is poppin'? We are back with another video. It's Shammy Deep coming at you live. I think today is December 15th, 2025. It's around 9 o'clock in the morning. Um, I just had some thoughts on my mind. I've been up for a few hours already. Exercising, this and that. So I just, I don't know, man. I just had these thoughts about like how the world's moving right now. It's like things are really, a lot is happening. Just over the weekend, there was two large mass shootings. Um, a lot of it has to do with race, religion. A lot of things are being brought up about Israel and everything about the Jewish community. Hanukkah just started, so it's like we're seeing so many things taking place right now. A lot of this stuff is contrived news. Almost all of it is contrived news. It's things that are happening um, as an agenda. It's things that are happening on a calendar. It's things that are placed in front of us that by people who control the whole calendar. And the reason why they're doing this stuff is to control your thoughts and your emotions and the things that you talk about. It's like these people are like psychotic, you know, um, control freaks. These people just want control of everything. They want control of your mind, your words, your body. Everything that you do, they want control of it. Everything where you go to eat, where you go to sleep, where you go to have fun, where you go to get help. Everything. They want control of everything. So everything that you consume is all coming through them. Everything that you do, it's all coming straight through them. The church that you worship, the food that you eat, the places you go to hang out, the information that you receive on your phone or on the screen, the sports and entertainments that you watch, everything is coming through by them. It's all going through them and it's being fed to you. And that's the level of psychotic we're dealing with here in America and the rest of the world. We have these people who are part of secret societies. We have people who are part of these ancient bloodlines who are, they serve a dark force, right? And that dark force wants control of the world. And the thing is that God controls everything. Still, the God above, the creator of this world, the God of love and everything that's supposed to be of harmony and peace and balance. That God controls everything. That God is the creator of this world, this life, this energy. These other lowercase gods, they want control of this physical world because we're definitely right now in a spiritual battle. There's a spiritual battle being taken place, and right now the physical world is being dominated by the lower world, the lower power, the lower force. And we're seeing it take place day in and day out. We're seeing, rituals take place. We're seeing people pass away. Just this past week, there was three. I think they all came from Nickelodeon. I think they were all part of Nickelodeon. I know at least two of them were, but there were three prominent, voice actors in these Nickelodeon shows that passed away this week. and all their ages vary from, they're rather older people, but they still were people who should live a lot longer, than they did. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like they one guy, I think he was in his 40s, he was a rather young guy. And why did he pass away randomly? And why does he pass away right when these other two, prominent voice actors in Nickelodeon pass away, all in 1 week? So it's like, we look at these things happening, and you can't chalk it up to coincidence. You can never chalk nothing up to coincidence. When it comes to the world of entertainment, when it comes to the world of celebrity, and anything that has to do with screens and being placed in front of a large group of people in the minds of the masses, nothing is by chance, nothing is by coincidence. Everything is done ritualistically, everything is done purposefully to get you on the path that they want you to be on, the track that they want you to stay on. They want you to be talking about the rituals they're putting out. They want you to be arguing about the things that they've contrived to take place within the news and within the world. And that's the level of psychotic we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who are legit control freaks. They have all the wealth in the world to do these things, to play out these rituals, to contrive storylines and script things to the way they want it. They want to be God themselves. They want, just like how God has control of everything in this world, these people, they want to be God themselves. They want to play God. And they use numbers, they use symbols, they use, anything that can, manipulate people, especially like the music and the entertainment. Those things really manipulate people, Um, I'm so, as you guys know, I'm someone who studies music. Athlete. I'm a really, I guess you can say I'm an active participant of the art of music. Uh, I produce, DJ, I write, I rap, I'm an overall artist. I do everything. I can play instruments. Um, but the thing is for me, like, I do music so I can help people. I don't do music so I can manipulate people in a bad way, in a way where it's destructive. And that's the difference between people who are in the industry and people who are outside of the industry, right? See, people who are in the industry, they might start out doing music for, a genuine reason. They might have started out for let's say they started out singing, right? And they got to a level, let's say they were singing about love, like, think about the old days, think about the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s and the 80s. They was like, music back then had a different feel to it. Music back then had more of a, like, a compassionate type of feel to it, where it was so honest. The music was very honest. The music was pure. You were singing about love. You were singing about, bringing your, carrying your dates books from home from school, like innocent stuff. And a lot of the people who started out, who are big now and started out back then singing like those type of tunes, they started out in a pure way. But then as they got higher in the industry, and as they wanted their career to have a more longevity, they had to dilute their product. They had to dilute the things that they were talking about and singing about. So it went from singing about love to now singing about, seduction, singing about, lusting, and doing, acts of lustful things, and other, derogatory stuff. And and other, just destructive nature of thinking and well-being. The entertainment industry has pushed an agenda, to really destroy the minds of the youth. And remember, all this is done to attack the youth. None of this is for adults. Like, anything that's sold to people, like, let's say, let's just use entertainment, right? Anything as far as entertainment as music and movies, TV, this and that, right? Sports. It's all catered to the children. It's all pushed. It might not be directly pushed to them, but eventually it is going to make its way to the children. Just think about the sports games. All sports. Yeah, a lot of adults, they are into sports, but sports are really a child's game. Like football, basketball, baseball. These are children's games. So yeah, adults might be be more the ones that are in the stadiums watching it, but the game is still pushed to children. Just like the music, yeah, there might be more adults in the stadiums or in the concert halls, listening to the music or whatever, but it's still pushed to the children. It's still pushed to the youth. Everything is pushed to the youth because they understand that the youth is the future. And if they want to have, continue to have domain over the world, they need to influence the youth as much as they can. They need to push their ideologies, they need to push their viewpoints onto the youth as much as possible. That's why they had people like Charlie Kirk. They have these fake, truth tellers who are now young people in the media, in the eye of the media. They have these guys who are young, and it's not like the old days where, well, I mean, I guess, throughout history there were young activists coming up, but there's no real activists in the media, at least today. There's no real activists. There's no real people who are actually, pushing new ideas and this and that. All the people like the Charlie Kirks and Nick Fuentes and those other people, even Candace Owen, all of them are set up by the government. All of them are set up by the CIA. Every single last one of them. They're set up to push and steer people in a direction that's not natural. It's not organic. You know, their divisive rhetoric is pushed to make people choose a side. They make people hate their neighbor. To wage war against their neighbor. That's literally what all of these people are pushed to do. And just look at the president. Look at Trump. Trump is pushed to do the exact thing I just said, to wage war against your neighbor. And like I said, everything is pushed towards the children. So they want younger people to pick up these ideologies. They want younger people to hear the Charlie Kirks, hear how Charlie Kirk thought, what he thinks about this and that. So now when these young people who hear this at age 13, when they grow up to be 23, 25, 26 years old, now they're the young adults in this country, and they're the ones pushing that same rhetoric that they heard when they were 13, right? And that is the problem. That's the challenge we're facing here in America, is that it's no longer your parent has it's no longer like, whatever your parent thought is what you thought. You know what I mean? Like, now it's like whatever is on the screen is what people are regurgitating, what people are out here saying and thinking and believing. And a lot of people now, they get their information just from their phones or the screens. And I'm not gonna say the screens are bad. I'm not gonna say everything on the phone is bad, because no, there's a lot of good information on the phone too, but you got to use it correctly to find it. You have to find the information. You can't just open the app and then let the algorithm tell you what you want to see. You have to actively dig and search, and almost like what you did back in the day in the library. You went to the library and you searched for books, and search you search for information. You dug for information. It's not like you get to the library and they just have books that you need to look at. Like they just, these are the only books we want you to read right here. These 10 books. No, it's like you have thousands of books in this room, and you're gonna go through every one, or certain sections, and find out the information that you're looking for. And that's not what's happening with these cell phones. These cell phones, it's just like people are just waking up, they're opening their phone, and whatever the algorithm is set for them, because everyone has a set algorithm. These companies, they basically understand the way you think. They understand what you like, what you don't like, and they're gonna push the exact material that they want you to know and see in front of you every time you hop on their platforms. Like, for example, like every time I hop on Instagram, Instagram knows exactly what I want to see. Like, it knows that I sorry, it knows that I like, I follow a lot of music people, DJs, stuff like that. And I follow celebrities and influencers, so it's gonna push that to my feed. This moment I open my app, it knows who I want to see, and what type of content I want to see. It already knows. So it's like when you open your Instagram, and you're on it for 10 minutes, and it's just you scrolling. It's not like you plugging in words and searching. It's like just you scrolling. You're scrolling through an algorithm that's catered to you, and you're just on basically autopilot. You're not really actively searching for anything. You're just blindly watching. And that's what they're doing to our minds. They have our minds on autopilot, where our minds are not critically thinking. They're not engaging in information. They're not looking into things. They're not searching. We're not researching. And that's what they're doing to the children. They're basically making their minds really soft, really lazy, almost like handicapping their mind. They don't want these kids to be thinking out the box. They don't want them to be thinking differently. They just want them thinking on an algorithm, because they know they can set the algorithm. They can craft it the way they want it to be. And once the kids are hooked into this algorithm way of thinking, that's when they know they got them. That's when they know they got domain over them, because they know that the kids are not going to critically think. They're not going to use their critical thought skills. I remember when I was in school, when I was in grade school, they had these state tests that everyone had to take. They were like mandatory state tests, right? And I remember I don't know if it was like a section or a day where you had to do like these sections, but I just remember there was a part in the test where it was like critical thinking. Like it was like, I don't know, maybe it was math problems, maybe it was like just, word problems. I don't remember exactly. I just know that it was critical thinking, and you got judged on your critical thoughts, like on how you thought about a problem, or a solution to a problem. There was definitely a part in those state exams where your critical thinking was judged and graded. And I don't know what the grades look like now, but from what I hear from the people who I know who are teachers in the education system, who are, people that work in this system, apparently the kids aren't learning anything. The kids aren't using any critical thought. I mean, again, I'm not personally in the school system, so I don't know firsthand. I don't have like a first person point of view, but I know people in my family and friends who are educators, who are people who are involved in or they have kids who are in the education system, and they're telling me, yeah, the kids are not learning. They're not picking up the material. They're not engaging with the information. They're just kind of expecting everything to come to them, and they're using AI so much to complete the work that, again, the kids are their brains are being handicapped, and they're not able to pick up the information correctly. um and there's an art to understanding information, because once you are able to pick up information and understand it, your brain then applies the information and critically breaks down situations with that information in mind. It's like, if I know, let's try to use an example, right? I'm trying to think of one. I don't know, let's just say like, okay, let's just say like I go to I get my driver's license, right? When you get your driver's license, you get your permit and all that. There's a written test and there's a road test. So in the written test, I know there's a rule where it's like, isn't the if you're trying to make a turn, if you're trying to make like a left turn, right? The driver on the left has the right of way. So if you're going straight and you're trying to make a left, and so that means you're crossing the double lines or you're crossing the line, the driver on the other side of the road who's on your left, they have the right of way to go before you make that turn, right? So that's a piece of information that I understand when I go out and drive. So when I drive, I apply that information on the road. So it's not like I'm driving and I'm just making left turns without considering that the person on the left has the right of way. Because the person on the left, if I cut them off, that can cause a huge accident because they technically have the right of way. So they're not expecting to brake. When I'm trying to make a left turn and they're going the opposite way of me, they're not expecting to brake. I'm the one who has to brake and wait for them to pass so I can go and make that turn. And when you take the written test and then you go out on the road and you actually experience that situation firsthand, you're applying the information that you learned. Like, let's say if somebody who took the written test but they use AI to take the written test, whatever way, I don't know, whatever way they use AI to take it and pass, right? When they get on the road, they never grasp the information from the test to apply in a real life situation. So they're going to be the ones to cut off the driver who has the right of way, and that's what's going to cause accidents. I hope that made sense. So it's like, it's super important to critically understand information so you can have that skill of critical thinking. Once you understand information, you can apply it, and then you can use it in critical situations that apply to your life. Any type of real life situations, you need to know how to move. You need to know what to do next. And that's something that I've noticed in a lot of the younger generation. They don't know what to do next. They have to be told what to do next, or they're just unsure of what to do next because maybe their parent told them, let's say their parent told them, teaches them something about manners, right? But when it comes to using that thing about manners in a real situation, they don't know how to do it because they're not engaging in enough real time situations. For example, like I know someone who told me that they told their kid, when someone offers you something, right? You don't always have to say yes, and you don't always have to say no. It's like you can accept. So let's say somebody offers you food, like you're at somebody's house and they offer you food. you don't always say yes. You don't always be like, yes, yes, give me that again. Sometimes be like, oh no, thank you, I'm okay. And then there's times where you don't always say no. If someone's offering you something, like, something to drink or whatever, you say, oh yes, I'll have some. So it's like kind of like a balance. You don't always say no, you don't always say yes, right? um and this person was telling me, she was like, yeah, like I told my kid, I the manners of not always saying yes and not always saying no. But the kid, this is one of these kids who they're constantly on the phone, constantly, you know engaging in online interactions, but not really in-person interactions. So the kid doesn't really understand how to use that information that their parent gave them. The parent gave them information about manners, right? But the kid still doesn't understand how to use it because they're not engaged in enough real-time situations to play it out. You know, like they have like almost this social anxiety. They have not enough practice in real time engagements with people, and that can happen when you're not you're so caught up in the phone every day, and you just you're not picking up on social cues. And that's so important, I believe, for a child's development, is to pick up on the social cues of life. You got to understand how the world works. You got to understand how people work. You got to understand how interactions work. Because the people who are at the top, they understand everything about human psychology. They understand everything. They're smart people that studied human psychology for years and years and years. So they understand how the chemistry of the brain works, and if less interaction with other humans causes some type of disruption in the brain. It causes some type of imbalance where you're not functioning the right way as a human being supposed to be. Long before technology, long before phones and screens, humans interacted with each other 100% of the time, each and every day. It was almost like, unless you lived by yourself, you almost had to interact with someone each every day. Most people, in those days lived in villages, small, communities and this and that, tribes, and the only type of interactions they were getting were the people in their tribe, or if they traveled, the people that they came across. And so that those interactions are the nature of human society. It's like organic, to talk to people, to look them in the eye, to laugh, and if they laugh or say something funny, you laugh too. You know what I mean? Like, to not, you have to have the social cues. You got to be able to pick those things up. If someone's sad, you don't just start laughing in the middle of the conversation. You know what I mean? You're not, like, I feel like these kids, they don't understand social cues, and it's so important to teach that. You know, like, I know they said that what was it? I think Australia, they blocked all social media for kids under 16. I think that's great. I think that if the rest of the world applied that same strategy to the way they did their education, I think that would benefit a lot of kids, especially in this generation where they don't know nothing but phones, you know? But it's because the adults, we've allowed phones to be such a big, part of our society. It's not normal. It's 2025. I was born in 96, and cell phones really weren't a big part of society until like 2000, until like 2008, I would say. You know, I would say, like, let's just round to 2010, right? Let's just say 2010. Cell phones really weren't like that, like they were a big thing, right? All throughout the 2000s, cell phones were definitely like a thing. But social media wasn't all that big. Like it was definitely around. Like I had MySpace. I was young, but I had MySpace, I was definitely on MySpace back in like '06. So like I was on social media for a long time, but it's not like how it is now. Like social media now is like so different. Like social media back then was so much more fun because yeah, you were discovering new people and this and that, but there was no algorithms that were like basically like it was like I don't know, the algorithms, there were algorithms back then, but they weren't like how they were now. The algorithms now are just straight up just poisoning you. They're just manipulating you. But the algorithms back then, it was like almost like our organic way of viewing social media. It's like anything that was viral, anything that had a lot of like attention would pop up because it was viral. It was something that like was gaining a lot of attention. And like it was like a normal way of like kind of interacting. Like if I made a funny video and it got a lot of attention, it could go viral at any second. And like that was a cool way of like interacting with people. It's like random people can go viral and you can like get in touch with people that way or see people's personalities in a more organic way. Now none of it's organic. All of it is contrived. Anything that goes viral nowadays is pushed by the machine. Like, yeah, you might get lucky on like TikTok, this and that, because TikTok, I've noticed random people can go viral on TikTok, right? But like, as far as like Instagram, it is super hard to go viral on Instagram. And don't even get me started with Twitter. Twitter is just, that platform is so bad now. Like I was on it the other day. Like they're like making you pay to like DM people. Like I'm like, yo, what is going on with this like platform? Like Twitter is awful now. It's probably the worst platform, social media out there. And the crazy part is Twitter used to be the best social media for a long time. Like it was the best. But then once Elon came in there and did what he did, he's made it so bad. The platform sucks. It's just filled with like porn. First of all, it's just porn all over Twitter. And then I mean, it's not on my Twitter. I don't have my algorithm. It's not like that. But I know Twitter's filled with porn. And um it's just not an honest platform. Like it's just so many bots. There's so much like there's just people from like Asia who are pretending to be Americans, like causing like huge controversy on the line with their viral comments and posts, like and they're just creating propaganda online, and they're trying to say that they're American, but they're not. They're like random people from like Asia and Africa. It's like, okay, this is not the way social media should be used. Like it is so destructive to the point where I don't even use it anymore. I use it, but I'm just so over it. Like every time I get on social media, it's just like I'm starting to feel drained. I'm just like, ugh, this again, this algorithm pushing nonsense. Like I don't know. I just don't like it anymore, and I'm really done with it. I'm only on it so I can put information that I want to put out there to the people who follow me. And, I do music, so I kind of have to be on it to stay up to date with, latest things going on in music. And, whenever I post my music, because that's the only way I'm getting reach. People are only hearing me from the accounts that I have. And again, all these accounts are controlled by the same people who control the calendar. So, it's like you can't, you try to escape the matrix, but the matrix is so big at this point. You just kind of have to exist with it and try to, defeat it from the inside. Because if you try to go outside the matrix, it's gonna be hard to get the reach that you want. Unless you're on the ground, you're pounding pavement, you're burning rubber and going around the world to push the message. It's really hard to do that. You kind of have to just do it online at this point. Um, and for me, I don't have the resources to go, on the street and push my message. I don't have it yet, just yet. I will have the resources, but right now I don't. I'm still building myself. I'm a 29-year-old man, and I'm still trying to get myself together. I'm still trying to get myself to afloat, and so I can take care of my family and my future family. I've created a business around a brand around my name. I've created a business around my skill and my talents, and it's definitely taken time. It's taken me 10 years to create this brand, to build it, to get my skills to a level where I believe it's at a professional level. But it's taken almost 10 years now, but I feel as if it was worth it. I sacrificed a lot of my time. I didn't go out with people. I ended relationships. I didn't, spend time doing nonsense and, with people I didn't really want to be around. I spent a lot of time by myself. I spent a lot of time, working on my skills and my craft, and, being able to make songs or beats, and understanding just the logic behind music and the science behind it. I spent a lot of time studying, studying the world, studying what's really going on in the world. I spend a lot of time doing those things. Um and I feel like it's worth it, because I'm rearing to a point where I believe things will be taking off for me soon. I just have to keep my head down and just keep going. Just keep knuckle dragging my way through, and until my name gets called, until it's my time to come out onto the stage and perform. I just, until that time comes, I just need to keep preparing myself. I need to keep getting myself in shape, my mind locked into what I need to do and what I want to do with my life. And all that comes from, just having that internal faith within yourself, and believing that God has a game plan for you. God has a life for you. If you follow the right blueprint that God gave you within yourself, you'll end up on the right path. You'll end up on the path that God has created for you. And it makes you think, is my life predetermined? Is my story predetermined? If I follow this path that I feel is within inside me, and it's going to take me to this life, that, God created for me. Does that mean that my own life is actually a contrived story, a scripted story? I mean, it's a good question to ask. It's something to think about, because really, I don't believe we have. I believe we have free will to make choices. What I want to do in this next 5 minutes, or who I want to see or talk to, right? We have free will in that sense, but I do believe there's some type of like spiritual guidance happening in our lives at all times. It's like I don't. It's kind of hard to explain. Maybe just if I had it like a movie, I could like describe it or show it in. Maybe that would be easier. But like, it's almost like God is like putting things in front of you or around you to guide you to a certain place, to make sure you end up in a certain place if you follow the signs. Now, if you don't follow God's signs and you follow whatever else influence you're following, like the Matrix influence, your life will end up not the way God intended it to end up, right? Now, I believe that to be true. I definitely believe like there's truth in those both of those things. If you follow God, you'll and you do what you feel is right with inside yourself, you'll end up in a path on a path that was eventually it was always there for you. It's like from birth. Like that saying. Whatever God has for you, it will always be there for you, and nothing can stop you from getting to that. And the only thing that can stop you is you, really. What's for you is what's for you, and it will always find you. And I do believe that to be true. If you just follow the signs in your heart and your mind and whatever you feel inside, whatever you think is right, I do believe you'll end up on the path that God created for you, and that path is always going to be good. It's always going to be a righteous path. It's always going to be a path of your highest self. You know, and I believe like if you don't follow whatever you feel is inside and you follow what the outside world is telling you to follow, you'll never get to your highest self. You'll never end up on the path of your highest self. And sometimes, like, people think your highest self means, oh, I'm wealthy, I have money, I have, fame or cars or this and that, women, whatever. That might make you feel like it's your highest self, but that internally it's probably not going to be your highest self. Because how many times do we hear people say money doesn't bring happiness? For me, I believe your highest self is happiness within yourself. That's your highest self. When you get to a point where you feel like you're so fulfilled, happy, with you're fulfilled within yourself, like you don't have a inch or of regret within you. You're just you feel like you're not leaving anything on the table. I think that's your highest self. I heard David Goggins say that a lot. He was like, he doesn't feel like he's missing something. He's got that fulfillment in his life. And he said like a lot of billionaires or millionaires, they'll talk to him saying like they still feel like they're missing something. And, for me, I feel like, those people, they might have all the money in the world and this and that, but they never got to their highest self. Because they probably listened to the outside world, they listened to the Matrix, and they might have been successful in the Matrix, but that doesn't mean they're going to be happy with themselves internally. That doesn't mean that their spirit is in the right place. And I feel like when your spirit is in the right place, you'll always be happy. Because you know that your spirit is following what's right. And it's just my personal belief. I don't think you can go wrong, when your spirit is in the right place. It's like what you're doing is right. No matter what, everybody knows like that feeling inside. We all know when we do something right and when we don't. We know when we do something bad. Everybody knows it. We all have that sense where, I shouldn't be doing this, I know it inside, like, nah, I shouldn't be doing it. My mind might tell me, oh, yeah, I should, because your mind will play tricks on you. But that's also because our minds are being so manipulated and, poisoned. Our minds aren't all thinking on the right path, where it's not. So you have to trust what's inside your gut. You have to trust what's inside your heart. I believe the human heart is one of the most powerful parts of our entire existence. It's so important, the human heart. I believe that's the secret to humanity, is understanding why the heart is so powerful. Why the heart is at the center of the body. Why is it the nucleus of the human body? Without the heart, the body dies, right? Think about like a person without their brain. They will still live. The body will still live. You know, anything out. If anything on the human body is missing, it will still figure out a way to survive and live. Anything. It could be whatever it is. It could still figure out a way to survive and live. But without the heart, nothing lives. It automatically dies. The heart is the center of all things. And I believe that God created the human heart and made it different from all, like, well, you could say, the heart of animals are powerful too. They are, because we're all connected in this way. But I do believe that the human heart has some type of magic power within it, that if we can unlock it, if we can get to it, to its core, if we can feel it, if we can, you know, understand the energy around this heart, I believe our lives will be so much better. I believe this world would be so much better, you know. And for example, right? I'll use what I do with music for example. When I make a beat, I always trust my instincts. I always trust my heart to what sounds good. I know that if I rely on my heart and my taste in music, the things that make me happy, like when I hear a sound, when I hear a song, this makes me happy. It makes me feel good because I can feel it in my heart. I can feel that, oh yeah, I love the way this rhythm's playing. I love the way these two notes play, and they play in this rhythm. I love the way that sounds. I know that this is the way I want to make music. I want my music to sound like this because I'm feeling it in my heart, right? I know when I do that, I will always have a good song or a good track or a good beat, because I know that my discernment for sounds is at a high level. Like I have a really good ear. My ear's trained at a professional level to know what sounds good, right? I know that if I just trust these things, these small tidbits of information that I've found in my studies of music, frequencies and stuff like that. If I found that if I trust my techniques, and I trust my ear of hearing things and feeling the music, because it's not just about hearing. You got to feel it. You got to feel the bass. You got to feel the drums moving. Like when I hear music now, I feel it. I hear the way the words bounce off the rhythms of the music. Like I can feel it. If when I do that, I know that I'm going to have a successful project. I know my project's going to be good. And when I don't do that, when I don't rely on my instincts, that's when things can go the other way. So it's the process of creating discernment, creating better discernment within yourself, having real instincts, going back to, children not being able to have situational awareness about, interactions with people, they don't their instincts are not developed enough because they're sitting on the phones and they're not using their survival instincts when they're on a phone. But when you're out in person, when you got a mic in your hand and people are looking at you and watching you and listening to you in real time, your survival instincts kick in. Your fight or flight kicks in. You're either going to run off stage and be scared, or you're going to stand there and deliver whatever message, whatever thoughts are on your mind or in your heart. You're going to deliver that message. You're going to perform. You're going to do what your body's telling you to do, right? You're going to do what you feel is right. When you're engaged in a conversation with somebody, the way you respond is going to come off of how you feel. If I'm having a good conversation with somebody, I'm not gonna respond, and I like the person, right? Let's say I'm having a good conversation with somebody, and I'm me and this person we're hitting it off. We're having a good interaction with one another. I'm not gonna respond in a negative way because I know that's not how I feel in the conversation. In the heat of the conversation, if I'm having a good time, if I'm, having an informative, you know, conversation with somebody, or we're laughing or this and that, I know that these are good feelings. These are good emotions because I can feel it and I can see it, and I can almost understand it in this space that we're in. That, yeah, this is a good vibe, right? So whatever I say back in these conversations, it's gonna replicate that same energy, right? It's gonna be a more positive way of talking or interacting. I'm not gonna have any type of animosity. I'm not gonna be all negative in that type of situation of a conversation. So it's like, you have to engage in these things to get better at it. It's like talking to females. You gotta engage with in talking to females if you want to get better at, you know, having more female friends. Females are, they're not gonna be the one. Most females aren't gonna be the ones to try to hold a conversation with the male. More than likely than not, it's the male that has to hold the conversation with the female. In my experience, at least. Now, once you get a female going, once you get a female really, interested in talking, they will take over the conversation, and all you have to do is just listen to them and bounce off what they say, and they just keep going. But you won't understand that if you don't engage in enough conversations with females. You will never understand that dynamic of how females think and interact if you don't engage in real time situations with them. If you just sit on the internet and you just, are on the phone talking to females, texting them, yeah, you can learn, a little bit about how people think, but you will never know it in real time. You won't know how, their eyes move. You won't know how their body language is. You won't be able to feel that out. You can't feel that out in on a text. It just is. There's no way. You have to be in person to see the energy, feel the energy that someone's giving off. Like that. I think that's so important to just your mental health. Is you have to be able to feel energy. Feel the energy just bouncing off of people. Is it a good energy? Is it a uncomfortable energy? Is it a sad energy? Is it a happy energy? And I think once you can feel that energy, once you can, you know, get to the point where you feel like you're confident in the way you interact with people, your mental health will improve, and you'll have more confidence just walking outside and talking to a random person. My grandpa, he was really great at doing that. He was great at just going out anywhere, like literally anywhere that he went, he could strike up a conversations with the most random of people. And these people would take to him. They would listen to him. They would talk to him. They would stop what they're doing and actually talk to him. And he had some type of power where he was able to just do that. And he had no fear. I don't think he had no self-doubt in himself when it came to engaging in conversation, you know? And I think that's another thing, like not having self-doubt, being able to trust yourself fully in situations, especially if it's in person, if it's something that you're doing face to face. Yeah, we can all get nervous. Everyone gets nervous, but not having self-doubt is different than having nerves. I think self-doubt can really kill yourself. It can kill you. It can kill the way you interact with other people. It can kill the way you think. It can kill your thought process. Like it can really kill your personality. Like it can shut all that down if you have self doubt. So I believe that, to eliminate self-doubt, to eliminate when you eliminate self-doubt, you eliminate mental health. I think that's one step to eliminating mental health, is eliminating self-doubt. And I think that's what's going on in this world today, is that we have a lot of people who are going through mental illness, whether it be because they're on the phones too much, or they're not having enough love in their life or enough interactions in their life, or they were born in a situation that was messed up, and they turned to drugs or whatever influences, and it messed them up. I believe that if we can just get away from certain things like the cell phones, or if we don't want to get away from cell phones completely, use cell phones in a constructive way, in a way where you can benefit yourself, not just you just scrolling through an algorithm. Use cell phones in a way where it can help your life, help improve your life, right? Change your relationship with the cell phone. Change your relationship with social media. It's like, if you use social media just to be nosy and look at what people are doing, instead of doing that, change it to where you use social media just for picking up information about a business, picking up a new skill, learning how to do something, or promoting your business or skill. Change your relationship with social media. And I think that is the first step to overcoming mental health, especially with these young kids who have it, who suffer from it, you know. And then, that's gonna make you want to go out in the street and actually meet people and engage with people, and, smile and talk to people, say hello when someone walks by. I tend to do that a lot. Like, I'll just say hello to people, and sometimes they say hello back, sometimes they don't. But, I don't take it, personally if someone doesn't say hello back. I might be like, oh, what's their problem? But whatever. I don't know what that person's going through. Maybe they're going through something so traumatic where they don't even want to talk to nobody. They don't want to look nobody in the eye. They just want to go about their business. So sometimes you just gotta let bygones be bygones, and don't let nothing bring you down. Don't have self-doubt in these situations. Don't doubt yourself. Don't be like, oh, was it something about me that made this person react that way, this and that. So, like, for me, like, when I go out in public, I try to speak to people. I look people in the eye. I smile. I don't give like a big old Donald Trump grin. But I give a nice little smirk, a little, how you doing? How you doing? But I try to also just make people feel good, especially if someone who's like trying to engage. There's people out here who want to engage with you. They want to engage in conversation, and maybe that's the way they overcome their mental health, is just by them talking to people. I've noticed some people are like that. Like, when they say hello to you, they want to keep talking, and they want to engage. Don't be the person who just shuts people off, and just be rude, unless like it's for good reason. But 9 times out of 10, most people, they just want to talk for with a friendly reason, and they just want to have some type of interaction with you. Interaction with people, just to see, who just to get a different perspective of someone outside of their own personal life. Maybe they talk to is people in their life, and they would just want to talk to somebody they don't know and just get another perspective, hear another voice. So always be open to conversation is the point that I'm making. Always be open to saying hello to people, saying, holding the door open for people, giving people a smile, just asking people how they're doing. I remember a couple times I would go to, like, let's say it was like a Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, right? I'll always be like, oh, hello, how you doing? And then I'll proceed with my order. And I remember a couple times this happening. The person behind the counter, they were like, "Oh wow, you're the first person to actually ask me how I'm doing." And that took me by surprise. I'm like, "Wow, really? Like, I'm the first person to ask you all day how you doing?" And it's like 7 o'clock in the afternoon. Like everybody who came in throughout this entire day, nobody asked how you were doing. So I always, I keep that in mind. Like I always ask people how they're doing, because you don't know. Some people, they want to, like, another thing my grandpa always told me was like, people want to be recognized. They want to be acknowledged. So you have to learn how to, like, almost play off of that card where you acknowledge people, make people feel good, almost stroke their ego, right? And that's how you get what you want out of people, and that's how you get you not get over, but like you kind of get by almost, I don't want to say kiss ass, but like you are kissing ass, but you're doing it in a gentle way. You're doing it in a way where it's like it's harmless. You're not trying to manipulate, you're not trying to use. It's kind of just, you're just making people feel good. And if you do that, people will tend to like you. They'll tend to interact with you more. They'll give you more opportunities. They'll give you more information. And I think that's the secret to networking as well. And once you learn how to do these things, it will really help you overall. It will help your mental health, and it will just give you clarity in your day. Um, so we're at the hour mark. I'm gonna wrap it up there, but I just wanted to get on here and just kind of talk a little bit, and pitch a little bit of information, and I hope you guys enjoyed what I had to say, and I'll be back with some more content. All right, so take care, everybody, and have a good day. Love you guys. Peace.